Okay. Oh, probably did not want to do that. There we go. Okay, so as usual, here we are with our lesson 8. You guys worked hard yesterday on your assessment. I have a couple people who are still finishing that up for me and getting it turned in. Thank you so much. The rest of you, nice job. Mrs. Woodland is busy grading them. It's going to take her a couple of, it might take her, yeah, she worked on it yesterday. It might take her today and tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. But thank you very much for working on it hard. I appreciate that. Today's learning targets, however, have to do with what we are going to, what we're going to work on today. I can write the beginning of a pourquoi tale that establishes the situation and character and uses precise and interesting words and phrases. So let's break that down a little bit because there's some hard words in there. All right. I can write the beginning of a pourquoi. So we're writing a beginning, just the beginning section today. So remember we had those little symbols I'm going to show on, and I'm going to show you in a minute. And in those symbols, you remember that the beginning ones, the first two that go with the beginning, are establishes the situation and the character section. Okay, and so we're going to establish, we're going to set up what's going on in the story. So our reader kind of has can be able to start imagining in their own mind what's going on in your story. And we're going to work on the characters today and getting in that we're going to have a main character and then some other secondary characters with your story that helps you move it forward. And you're going to use precise and interesting words and phrases. Why is it not doing its thing now that it normally does? Okay. I don't know why it's not working for me. Oh, now it's working too fast for me. All right. I don't know. There we go. It was underlining some things for me. And uses precise and interesting words and phrases. So you know as a reader that books have to be interesting for you to be able to want to read them, right? And so we have to make sure that when we are writing, we are using words that are precise. We are using words that when the reader is reading, they can imagine what you're trying to imagine in your head, in their heads. So when you say green, all of us have a different sense of what green might look like in our brain, right? Like I might think of a dark forest green, where Serene might be thinking of more of a bright green, like a snake, right? Or like her favorite snake, perhaps. So everybody, when we say precise, we mean if I say a general word that's just kind of boring, like green, my friend Gavin might have a totally different idea of what green looks like in his head than what I have in my head. So we are wanting to make sure that when we are describing things today, especially our characters, that we make it as precise as possible. We make it as detailed as possible. And we also want to use interesting words and phrases. We want to keep our readers wanting to listen to or read our story. Our second learning target today has to do with being able to read your pourquoi aloud, accurately, and with expression. So after we come back from Christmas break, you are going to have an opportunity to read your pourquoi aloud, and we are going to grade your ability to read it fluently. So with expression and smoothly and all those things that, again, I'll give more details later. But we are going to practice a little bit today. Again, being able to, that's also why I want to make sure that you have enough room to write all your sentences today, because you're going to practice reading those two sections of your story. We're going to be practicing it this week, next week, and then again, when we come back from break, you will be, there'll be a little assessment on your ability to read your pourquoi with fluency. All right, so let's remember, oh boy, did it, whether I liked it or not, the different symbols that went along with the essential parts of a narrative. And today we are going to focus just on two of them. We're just going to focus at the beginning of our story. And I want you, I know some of you are eager to get to the exciting parts of your story, the problem and the solutions. I know some of you said that you were super excited about your idea. And that is good. I'm so excited about that. But if you think about most books that you read, it's really important to set the beginning up before you get into the too much action, so that the reader can really see that in their brains and get the ideas of the characters and so forth, and so they care about what's going to happen to those characters. They understand where that story is taking place, so that when they are thinking about the action, they have that in their brains. So we really want to make sure that we do a good job of the beginning before we get to the action, before we get to the problem and the solution, because that really helps the reader be able to see those ideas in their head. So when you were looking at you had pages 18 and pages 19. And so we began on page 18 and so you can look at that inside your workbook. I see some of you already looking at your workbook, trying to find those pages. Good job. So everybody look at page 18 and page 19. Now in a minute, we're gonna look at our pourquoi that we did together. But I want to I really like everybody to take a look at that, because that's the part you're focusing on today, the part in red that Mrs. Harrison has here, just the beginning. That's what we're working on today, all right? So we're establishing the situation, we're doing the rectangle part, and we're going to introduce the characters, which is that little smiley face part, okay? Those symbols help us remember what those parts are. All right, so hopefully you completed completed it well, and have really got that in your brain about what's going to happen in the beginning of your story there. All right, so let's take just a quick look at the one that we did together. So on the screen is under the doc camera. You also have this in your book, but I don't need you to be flipping pages too much here, but this is on your page 10, in case later on you're like, I don't remember. It is on our page 10 that we had, but you can just look at it here, and that's probably sufficient. So we established the situation together, and we also changed our idea as we went. And so you might find as you're writing your story today that you want to tweak your plan a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. Authors do that all the time. They think they have an idea, and then another one comes up that they like better, and then they can switch it out. So that's why we were writing in pencil. Mrs. Harrison wrote in pen so we could see, and now she wished she could erase it. All right, so we have 3 sections. What is happening? Well, the pollywogs are trying to find food. First we had that they were trying to get away from the lizard, but that ended up being our problem, not what was happening at the beginning of the story. So think about what your characters are doing at the very beginning of the story, not worrying about the problem yet, thinking about what they're doing at the beginning of your story. So you're setting up the ideas. Then we had a where, the pond in the savannah, and our when, a long time ago. And some of you were asking, how specific did you have to be for the when? Well, a long time ago is not specific at all. Some of you wanted to be more specific, and that is fine. And then we had our introducing the characters. So let's first just look at the establishing a situation. So we took these ideas, 1, 2, 3, and we put them, let me go back real quickly to here we go. Let's look at how we turned those ideas into sentences now, all right? So we took those ideas that were on page 10 in that very first section, and we turned that into 3 sentences. Long, long ago, in a pond on the savannah, a group of pollywogs were hanging out looking for food. The pond was surrounded by grasses and rocks. Maddie, the largest of the pollywogs, was keeping watch for predators, while the other pollywogs were eating small plants. Does everybody see how we took what was in the beginning and put them in those 3 sentences? Give me a thumbs up if you can see all 3 parts of my plan in those 3 sentences. In fact, most of it was in the first sentence, right? Actually, the first sentence told a lot of stuff. It said long, long ago. I let those thumbs up. Thank you, those of you who were, you can put those thumbs away now. Miss Madison, keep that. Shh. All right, tongue in that mouth for me. All right, long, long ago in a pond on the savannah. That had my where and my when in the very first section. A group of pollywogs were hanging out looking for food. That's all of those ideas. But I can't just stop there. Because if I didn't include the rest of mine, then I really am not doing the what is happening. And giving that reader an idea about what about the pond? The pond is surrounded by grasses and rocks. Is that important to our story later? I'm looking for some nodding or some, okay, thank you. That's important to our story later because if you remember, Steve the lizard comes out from behind a rock. So that is an important sentence, even though that's not in our plan, that's an important sentence for what's going to happen later. Maddie, now I'm starting in my characters, but I'm not going to give a whole lot of information. This is still about, mostly about what's going on in the story. Maddie, the largest of the pollywogs, was keeping watch for predators while the other pollywogs were eating small plants. Okay, so I have 3 sentences that came from the section that was on my in my plan right here. Okay, 3 sentences. Most of this came in the first sentence, and then I had to give some precise language and some interesting words and phrases to keep my reader interested in what I was going to do. Then here we have our second section. In this section, we already used Maddie a little bit here, okay? And that's okay. Maddie can come in on the first page as well, the main character. So your main character might come in on the first page, or you might wait for the second page. It might work better over here. But introducing the characters, who are the main ones? Maddie, Bill, Flower, and Phil. You all have ones on page 18. You're the characters you came up with. Now, show me on your fingers, how many characters did you come up with to be in your story? Oh, I see 3s, I see 4s. I see 4, I see a lot of 4s, or 5. Okay, good. 2, I see a couple 2s, okay. So remember, you're going to need, most of us picked 4. All right, good, all right. So, and we picked 4 for ours because we wanted some, usually we talked about what do they like, and we talked about being small or tiny, tiniest, green, drab. That came from the other story. So I like so make sure you have, I look like 4 characters is a good amount, or 3 characters could be okay too, but I would probably have more than 2 so that you can have some interaction between your characters. We're not going to be using dialogue today, any talking today in our story, but we are going to have some talking tomorrow and some dialogue tomorrow. And so it would be probably a good idea for your character to have some people to talk to, or have some other characters to talk to, and some other characters to be able to talk back. It just makes the story more interesting than when you only have 1 character. Now, some books do have only 1 character. Some stories do, but today you're probably going to be better off if you have 3 to 4 characters. So if you don't yet, you might want to look at that, okay? All right, so now we've looked at our example, all right? So before we actually get to let's see how we turned that section on our that I showed you just now on our character section. This is how we turned it into sentences. Maddie was a baby African bullfrog and had always been the frog most worried about the lizards also in the savannah. Okay, so I'm kind of setting up our problem, aren't I? I'm not saying what the problem is yet, but I'm setting up the problem a little bit, and I'm talking a little bit more about Maddie. So Maddie came in on the first page, but Maddie is also on this page because I want to know, since she's our main character, I wanted to know a little bit more about her. Now remember, I'm trying to get my reader to think about what these characters are like in their brains like they're in my brain. So if I hadn't said anything about what kind of frog she was, then again, Charlie Carr might have a picture of a totally different frog in his head than in mine. Marin might be thinking of a tiny little poison dart frog, while Jensen might be thinking about a wood frog, while Gabe might be thinking about a glass frog, right? So if I say frog, that's a pretty general idea. All of my friends might have different frogs in their brains, but I want you to think about a bullfrog. And I specifically picked what kind of bullfrog because I know that a lot of you have been reading that bullfrog book with Mrs. Aubin, and you kind of have a sense of what a bullfrog is like. It's big, okay? So I wanted you to be able to see that in your head like I see it in mine. So I have to use precise language. I made it sure I said which kind of frog. So if you are writing about a frog today, which all of you are, think about what kind of frog you're thinking of, okay? Thinking about what kind, so when you are describing your characters, you can give more precise description about what your character looks like, okay? Then I have Maddie's friends were named Bill, Flower, and Phil. Bill was tiny, Flower was tinier, and little Phil was the tiniest. They were always worried about eating, not worried about being eaten. All right, so this gives me a sort of a sense of these little tiny frogs, that they're tiny compared to Maddie. So that's giving the reader a little bit of an idea of those secondary characters. Plus, we know that Maddie is a worrier and she's keeping an eye out for those babies. So we're already setting up a little bit of an idea that she's protective of those little ones. And the other ones are kind of carefree. They don't really care, right? So I'm giving some ideas about what those characters are like. And the reason I really wanted you to plan ahead is because if you'll notice in my sentences have a little bit of information about what's going to happen, like the idea about the lizard. And if you hadn't planned your story out yet, you might not know what was coming yet to be able to put some details in this page about things that you want your reader to know before you get to the problem, before you get to the solutions and so forth, okay? Now, how many sentences do I have here? Everybody count. Which means you have to look at the screen. Some of you are not looking at my screen. How many sentences, show me on your fingers, how many sentences do you see there?
3.
We see 3 sentences. So how many sentences do you think I'm going to expect from you on this page at least? Yes, Charlie Van Rickley, good job. I'm going to expect about at least 3 sentences from you, right? Yeah, totally. And so I want you to be thinking about today, I'm not asking for millions and millions of sentences. I am asking for 3 really good sentences on the first page and at least 3 really good sentences on the second page. And you'll notice my sentences aren't super long and they're not super short. The first one's pretty long, but the second one just says Maddie's friends were named Bill, Flower, and Phil. And sometimes it's nice to have, you don't want to put 3 really short sentences and you don't want 3 really long sentences. You want to vary your length of your sentences as well. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're just going to look really quick at a narrative checklist that's in your book. Now, I'm not going to have you write anything down. I'm not going to have you worry about anything because we're going to do this. We're going to look at the checklist at the end of class today a little bit, but I want you to look at it in your book. It's page 25 and 26. Everybody turn to page 25 and 26. And we're just going to mark real quickly which ones that you're going to think about and work on today. And then hopefully we'll have a yes or a no answer whether you included this in your story. We're good. We just want to keep this, a checklist is a great thing to have so you make sure that everything gets accomplished. And so I'm going to go ahead and just for a minute get out of here and use my dot camera so you can be with me because there's my page 25. All right. So we're going to focus on a couple of parts today while we're writing. And you want to make sure that that you're doing what those parts are asking. So the first one right here at the top of page 25, it says, I use some information from what I have read to create characters, setting, or events in the story. All right. Did we come up with some information about different frogs? Do we know a little bit about frogs already? Yeah, we do, don't we? Do we also know that where frogs live? An idea of where frogs live? We do. So if you are thinking, if your frog idea, if your characters and your setting and the things that are happening in your story make sense to go along with frogs, then you should be okay. So that's one of the things we're thinking about today. Go ahead and put a star in that box next to the very top one for me. Put a little star there. That's what you're gonna work on that a little bit today. Does everybody see on page 25, top of page 25? Give a little star or a little check mark, something to show that you're gonna do. Thank you, Marin, for showing me that you're paying attention. I appreciate it. Give me that thumbs up. All right, does everybody everybody give a little, that's something we're gonna work on today. Lyrics got it. All right. All right. Miss Isabella has got it. All right. Thank you, my friend. All right. So we're going to work on that one. Plus, we're going to work on this one. I introduced the narrator and established the situation. So when we're doing our story, we don't have an official narrator, but we know that our story is going to be said by the author, right? Our story doesn't really have a narrator, like a certain person who's reading it out loud, but we know that the story is going to be what we call third person, from from the outside view, not from the frog's view kind of idea. So you're going to introduce the characters and establish the situation. Then if you look at page 26, there are some things that you are going to work on a little bit today. If you look at the third one, it says, I help readers understand important parts of the story by describing what they might see, hear, taste, smell, or feel if they were really there. And this is what Mrs. Harrison was talking about when she said precise words today. When I said that the pond was near some grass and rocks, that helps my reader get an idea of what that pond looks like, right? That's what they see. You in your story could include something that involves some smell, like what it smells like. Maybe your character smells something, or maybe your characters are the smell or the thing that's making the sound, because we're talking about here, right? And then the next one says, I tell my story in a way that helps readers imagine the characters, setting, and events. Again, that's what Mrs. Harrison was talking about, precise words. If you are saying green's a good color. I love it. It's my favorite. But I don't know that if I just say green, that's going to give necessarily my reader a good idea of what that green color is. I want to be more precise. So I could say light green. I could say forest green. I could say, what other colors of green are there? Neon green. Maybe if some of her frogs seem almost neon, don't they? So I could more specific. If you're doing a poison dart frog story, then you have a lot of options of different colors, right? All right. Last one, or last two sections here. My words and sentences follow the rules of writing. All right, what should be at the beginning of every sentence, friends? Beginning of every sentence should have a capital, right? Every sentence should have a capital. What should every sentence end in? Some sort of punctuation, right? Some sort of period, perhaps, and so forth. All right, or maybe even an exclamation mark in some of our sentences. Right? So thinking about our rules of writing, and spelling, capitalization, and punctuation are correct. Now, I'm not expecting everything to be perfect right now, but while you're writing, it's really a good idea to, as you're writing, if you know you need a capital, put in a capital. Don't wait to go when we do the editing and revising and put in a capital. Go ahead and put the capital. If it's a name, if you name your character, you should probably have a capital just from the beginning. All right? So we don't have to go back and fix that as well later. Okay, so those are the things you are working on while you're writing. And you're just working on them. You're just thinking about them. And Mrs. Harrison gets you to the writing part here, which is really quick. Then I want you to think about, what words can I use so that my readers imagine things better? All right, so here we are, friends. We're getting ready to do this next one. We're going to sketch a picture to get your brain thinking about what, where, when, and who. All right, so in your book, you are going to turn to, well, everybody first look at go back to page 18 just for a second. Go back to page 18 just for a moment so that you can look at your, I'm going to go back to this section on page 18 and reread this section right here to yourself. Whatever you wrote on page 18, everybody reread that right now. Not mine, yours. Read page 18, just the top. Okay, you got that pencil? All right, everybody turn to page 27. Turn to page 27.
Are we reading what is happening or what is the problem?
So you're just establishing the situation. You're just doing that part that's right here, sweetie. Just this top right here. Okay? But I don't want you to write anything yet. Just draw some pictures. Sketch some pictures. What's going on in your story?
Miss Harrison, I don't think, I can't find that part on page 18. It only says what is happening, where, and when.
Yep, that's exactly what you're doing. Yep, that's the part you need. See the picture? Here's our rectangle. Here's our rectangle. That's all you're worrying about.
I don't have that part on my page.
On page 18, you wrote well, that was one of your assignments, was to do page 18. That was what we did on Thursday together. Did you not, you didn't do that work on page 18?
I did that, but I think you said to only do the where and the when. That's what I heard.
Okay, so can you think about what's happening at your pond, or at your, like mine's pond, right? So what were they doing in the pond? Mine were looking for food. So just think about what, I mean, if you didn't put that in there, that's fine. All right, so are you drawing, everybody should be drawing a picture.
Miss Harrison?
Yes.
Is the picture for, like, you're drawing a picture for what's happening?
Yes, just at the beginning of your story. So if I was drawing a picture according to us, right, I would draw my pond, and we're just sketching. This is not your final draft. This is you're getting your thoughts down on paper. So Mrs. Harrison would draw her pond, and she'd draw some rocks, and she'd draw some grass, right? Some bad grass. Mrs. Harrison's not a good not the best of the artists. So, and then I would have my little polywogs inside, right? So this, you're just drawing your ideas down, because you're about to write some sentences. But not yet. We're going to wait on the sentences. We're just thinking about what, and don't draw my picture. So this is the pollywog story. Think about your story. Where is your story taking place? Draw, if it's in the jungle, then you're drawing a jungle. If it's in the woods, like Ethan's story, I think, is taking place in the woods. So he would draw more of a wood, probably, story, wood picture. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is not something you're worrying about showing anybody. It's just for your ideas, getting your ideas set for when you write your sentences. Oh, I like Noah's working hard. Lena's working hard. Miss Lila Morris is working hard. Include some extra details. If you think you're done, throw in some more details. Are there trees? Are there plants? Think about your characters and your setting.
Well,
if you are, some of you were doing it in the land of the time of the dinosaurs, maybe there's some dinosaurs in the background.
Miss Harrison, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know. Some of you shared your ideas with me, and I get to use them as examples, huh? Very nice. You don't need to focus on the characters on this picture too much. Like my little pollywogs are just little dots, because I'm going to worry about them later. My little pollywog friends. So you're just drawing a sketch.
Mrs. Harrison?
Yes.
Is it okay if mine are frogs?
Yes, totally. This is just our story that I'm drawing. Yes, you draw whatever your story is about. Yeah, whatever your story is about, go for it. So thinking about establishing the situation, where is your story taking place? My little guys are looking for food. That's where we started at. They're looking for food.
Miss Harrison, does it have to be something like frogs?
So your story has to be a why question that has to do with frogs. That's what we established last week. Remember how we made that whole why list? Yep, you had to pick one of those or a similar story idea. So frogs don't have to be in this picture. All right, I know you're probably not done with your sketch, but it is just supposed to be a sketch, and you can draw more and color later if you would like. All right, now go ahead real quick and now look at your plan. We'll go back to page 18 and see who your people are. Who are your characters? Look at your characters. Look at and what they are like. Some of you gave better descriptions here than I did, which is good. So look at who your characters are. And on the page, is there supposed to find it? Here it is. On page 28. Here it is. Here's your character picture. Symbol. Here's your drawing spot. All right. So in that spot, what I'd like you to do is just sketch a picture of your main characters and what they're like. So since I said Maddie was a big bullfrog, but she's still a pollywog. So she might be, wow, Mrs. Harrison's not gonna win any art contests, that's for sure.
Wait, what page is it?
What? It's the next one. It's just the next one after the one we just did. The one you just did was 27, and now this is 28. So here's my friend, there's the picture of my Maddie, and then I have Bill and Flower and Phil. So I know that they're tiny, tinier, and tiniest. So Mrs. Harrison, just giving you some ideas. Draw whoever your characters are.
Do they have to be tadpoles?
No, what are your characters? Think about your characters. I'm just drawing the ones that go with our story. You are drawing the characters that go with your story.
Miss Harrison,
Yes.
do all the characters have to be frogs?
No, nope, they do not. As long as your story is explaining the answer to why, blah, 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 and your question, think about your question, whatever the title of your story is going to be. Ours was Why Do Pollywogs Wiggle? I believe Lila's is Why Do Frogs and Cats Not? All right, Lila, tell me.
Why are frogs and cats enemies?
Something like that. Are they not
Mine
friends?
is why are frogs and cats not friends?
There you go. We didn't quite make them enemies. We just made them not friends. All right. So as long as your characters are explaining that story, are going along with your story, just go ahead and get them drawn in there.
I wish Dad was here.
Miss Harrison, were we supposed to put our questions somewhere so we don't forget?
Frogs.
So that should be on your plan on the bottom of page 19. Your question should be on your page 19 underneath the what is the point. We all wrote our questions right there.
And you're on page 25. I want to write it in the chat.
27 and 28.
27 and 28, but I think they're confused because they're going back to their other plan.
Your
pages.
plan, yep.
So
It is hard. You've got to go back. You've got to flip back and forth. Their plan is 18 and 19,
Are we
and their
writing?
picture is on 27 and 28.
Okay, so maybe put a pencil or dog ear it or something so you can flip back and forth.
That would be perfect. Yes. Pages 18 and 19 are your best friends right now because they're where you got your ideas down. Okay, I'm going to give only about another minute to draw. All right, and it's just a sketch, and you guys can color and make them better later. They're really this isn't part that you're really going to get graded on. The idea is to help us with our details when we write. But if you have to draw it, it makes you think about what the words are that you might use in your story. In my story, I drew grass and rocks. So then I knew in my sentences that I would write the pond was surrounded by grass and rocks. So make sure that you put some good details in the drawing, but not a lot. I mean, but you're not really trying to make it fabulous. You can do that later if we finish early. All right. Okay. Everybody still has their pencil out, right? This is where we're going to get our right. Oh, good job, Miss Haley. All right. She's got a pencil ready to rock. All right. Are you ready to be authors? You're ready to be authors, right? Okay. So
Taking a bath.
now you've got your pictures. You've got your ideas. You know what you're going to, you're just doing the beginning of the story. We're not doing the problem. We're not doing the part about, you know, how anything's solved. We're just starting our story. All right. So just really quickly, I'm going to go back, boom, 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 to our example that we did as a group. Okay. So these are my 3 sentences. These are our 3 sentences. These are not your 3 sentences. These are our 3 sentences from our other story, which was why did pollywogs wiggle? Long, long ago, in a pond on the savannah, a group of pollywogs were hanging out looking for food, surrounded by grasses and rocks. Maddie, the largest of the pollywogs, was keeping watch for predators while the other pollywogs were eating small plants. That was my 3 sentences. That was our 3 sentences. Now what I need you to do is on page 25. Nope, sorry, 27. So everybody look at page 27. That is where you are going to write your sentences now. If you run out of room, Mrs. Harrison said to have your spiral nearby, so you can write in your spiral if you run out of space. All right, Mr. Max Fox, are you ready? You're gonna write your sentences. All right, everybody should be on page 27 and you're writing your 3 sentences. Go for it.
Is this how you spell Ago? A-G-O?
You can look at my examples for some of the words that you might want to use because they are on the screen still. You want to use some of them. You're not copying my sentences though. You're writing your own sentences here. Let's see if I can.
Up your example because we can't see the example.
Yes, I'm gonna put I was trying to see if I could put both of them up at the same time, and that was a little troubling for me. I was trying to see if I could get everything on the screen at the same time when I really just ruined that. All right, here we go. There's that one. All right, now you can see both of them. You're writing your own sentences here. Show me on your fingers, how many sentences should we have at least? 3, Madison's got it. You should have 3 complete sentences. Thanks, Robert, good job. You can put your fingers down. Might need them to write. Writing your own sentences to your story. Keep in mind, we're not worrying about completely correct spelling, but we are trying to remember if you know how to spell a word to spell it correctly, go ahead and spell it correctly. If you know it needs a capital, put a capital. But don't worry about, not all of the words have to be spelled correctly at this point. We're going to revise and edit later.
But those were the kinds of snakes in the rainforest. They're gonna run from a python. Because it's a lot shorter than this.
So the question is going to come up. Can I have more than 3 sentences? Yes, you can. But you need to have at least 3 sentences. If you wish to have another sentence or 2, you might run out of room and need to use your spiral. Don't forget, you're trying to write your story in a way that helps the readers imagine the characters and the setting. Yes, Miss Madison, do you have a question? Sorry, Miss Madison, I'm trying to find you. Say again, Miss Madison.
I'm done.
You're done? All right, great. Want to go back up and add some details to your picture for a moment then? You could do that. Not quite ready for you to go on to the next one yet. Thanks.
She's a family. Yeah, but you do take her for walks and play with her and give her some food and stuff, right? Sometimes you got some dog chores, right? Big deal.
Yes, Ms. Cernay.
Today,
A question, sweetie?
How you doing?
How do you spell were?
W-E-R-E. Don't worry about too much about that though. I'm happy to answer your question though, but don't worry about spelling too much because we will worry about getting those corrected later.
Because I wrote W-R, so I just added the U.
All right, W-E-R-E for were. That's probably going to be one of our red words at some point. All right. Can everybody show me with their fingers how many sentences they have written so far so I can see about where you are? So 1 sentence, okay, thank you. 2 sentences or 3 sentences. Cooper, can you show me how far you are? Okay, all right, thank you. No worries. We'll give a little more time.
I don't know how to do 1.5 sentences on my fingers.
It's okay. You could have said 2 or 1. I would have taken it. It's okay. All right. So Jensen, you know, I see that you had a problem with doing it on the wrong page. That's okay. As long as you know which part goes with which page, then it's fine. Because ultimately we're going to end up typing it and you're going to type it in the right order anyway. Okay? So don't worry too much.
We need to be able to hear.
Those of you who are finishing early, go back and make sure, are there any describing words you could add? Remember, we want our audience, our reader, to see it in their head like we see it. So remember, if you're going to use colors, we're trying to use precise words. If you need to add some details in there, that's what you could do right now, is you can make sure, are you helping the reader imagine the story in their heads? Could you describe what they see, what they hear, what they taste?
This is the mind bender for the day.
What kind, if you say plants, what kind of plants? Be very specific if you can. Mr. Logan Peters, did you have a question or a comment you needed to share with me?
I didn't have a question, but
Yeah.
for my characters, I'm doing poison dart frogs, so I'm gonna do bright, brighter, and brightest.
Oh, very good. All right. Excellent. I think I saw Lucas's hand up. No, Jensen. Sorry, Jensen.
So that isn't really a problem anymore because I erased all of it
Oh,
and put it on the right page.
okay. All right. Thank you so much. Sorry, that was trouble for you. All right. Okay. So I see that some of us are done. See, some of us are still working. I don't want to rush anyone, but I do want to move on for people who are ready to move on. So I'm just looking at the clock and I want to make sure that, so if you aren't finished with this page, just know that when we're finished today, you can go back and add whatever you need to this page. You can cut, you can add your sentences. You can have someone read it for you and say, can you see this in your head like I see it? You can ask someone, if those of you who have asked me if you can go to the restroom, go ahead and do what you need to do. Just come back as soon as you can. All right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next page. Just so that we, oh, Isabella said she has some schema about polywogs at the lair of the bear. Cool. So you can create your story about that if you wanted to put that as your setting. That would be awesome. All right, so Mrs. Harrison is going to have us move on, but if you don't stress out, you can certainly continue on and then move on with us, or you can move on with us and then come back. It's up to you. I don't want to stress anybody out. But we are going to go on to the character section. Why is it not going into the character? I'm clicking on it and oh, there we go. Apparently it just needed a think. All right, so now on page 28, it's our characters. We drew our picture. We have our plan that we can look at about what, like Logan said, bright. He's going to do poison dart frog. So his have to do bright, brighter, brightest. So here's our story that we wrote together. Maddie was a baby African bullfrog and had always been the frog most worried about the lizards, also in the savannah. Maddie's friends were named Bill, Flower, and Phil. Bill was tiny, Flower was tinier, and little Phil was the tiniest. They were always worried about eating, not worried about being eaten. Okay, so there's our three sentences again. So on your page 28, you need at least 3 sentences. You want more than 3 sentences? You may do so, but at least 3 sentences. And if you can't fit it in this amount of space, you can choose to write the remainder of your sentence or sentences inside your EL spiral. I know for some of you, this isn't very much room. Okay, you're on it, my friends.
Miss Harrison?
Yes.
Are the boxes to write in, or
the lines are to write in, the boxes, this big areas for your picture. So your sentences go on the lines. Mine is weird because mine is in a box. You're right, mine's a little confusing, but mine goes with our story that we wrote before and we wrote it in the box.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, that's confusing. Yeah, you're writing on the lines. You're writing here. Thank you for asking that question. Guys, always ask me. If you're not sure, please ask. It is very good to find the answer out before you get frustrated or before you make a mistake that's going to be a problem, right? So always ask me. I'm trying to keep an eye on chat, but Mrs. Aubin, you can always ask Mrs. Aubin a question too. She's the other half of my.
Page is it again?
You're on page 28 now. This is page 28. Mrs. Aubin is the other half of my brain, so she usually can answer any question that you might have.
And I wonder why you get some chats that I'm not seeing, because mine are all caught up and then I hear you mention something and.
No, they privately can chat with you or me.
Okay, so you might want to chat with me more, kiddos, just so Mrs. Harrison can stay focused on her lesson, you know, if you're doing chat, and then you can orally.
Ah, what just happened?
Just a thought.
Sorry. You have.
There we go. Ah, I did it again. There we go. I'm gonna stop touching my computer.
So now you have 3, right?
It causes trials and tribulations. Okay, I see everybody working hard. Good job, my friends.
But you gotta take care of it.
Keep in mind, you're trying to help the reader see the characters in their heads like you see it in your head. So use that precise language when you can. I see some of you taking a minute, and it's okay. Sometimes you have to think about things for a little while before you write them. So those of you who I see who are, it's okay to take time to think. It's okay. We don't expect everybody to be immediately able to just plop sentences on the paper.
That's awesome. Yes, I know. You're being so patient, Max. I'll tell you what you need to do, okay? Okay, so you guys have some options today.
Yes, Jensen.
I'm going to tell you. So I put them in Google Classroom.
I finished both of the pages.
Excellent. Can you go back and add any details? Are there any details that you might be able to add in, some adjectives, some describing words, or anything that might help your reader see what you see in your head?
Okay, well, so in all I wrote 6 sentences.
Excellent. Do you want to, would you like to read, how about reading the character page to me? Wait, your sentences are for this one.
Okay. The frogs are talking about food. They go home to see that the fridge was empty. They looked everywhere. They found no food.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, that's your character page?
Yes.
Page 28. Okay, so I've got some action going on there. They're looking at home. There's no food. Okay, but I can't see your characters in my head. Who are because you have they. So did you give your characters names already?
Yes, in the first place.
Okay. Do I know what did you give a description on that first page of what your characters look like?
What they look like?
Mm-hmm.
Not what they look like, but
Because remember how we have this part here where they were one was Maddie was a baby Maddie was a baby African bullfrog, and then the other characters were tinier, and tiniest. Do you have anything in there on any of your characters about like how big they are, what color they are, so that we kind of have a sense of what they look like?
They like eating.
I finished.
So are they big, fat ones? Josh, do you want to read one of your pages to us?
Okay, I'll read my character.
Okay.
The frogs were named Jake, Bobo, Teddy, and Kate. Jake was always very serious. Bobo was very silly. Teddy was very smart, and Kate was very helpful.
Ah.
All frogs, they were all blue.
Okay. What color blue? What kind of blue?
Dark blue.
Dark blue. Ooh, see how you could add in a little extra word there so that I don't think about sky blue, right?
I'm done.
Hey, Josh, could you read that beginning of that first sentence one more time?
The frogs were named
Perfect.
Jake,
Actually, I just needed that. In my head, I heard the characters were, and I liked the fact that you said the frogs were. That's perfect. No worries. Actually, so add that word dark in there and give us some description, a little bit more description.
I'm all done, Miss Harrison.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, hold on. And let's just get a couple more examples. Astria, do you want to read one of your pages for me?
Go far enough.
Sure.
All right. What do you want to read?
I'll read my character one.
Okay.
Wait, just a question before I start reading it to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay if I also use bullfrog? Because
Oh, yeah.
frogs are big.
Yeah, you bet.
Emma is a bullfrog, and also her friends are. Emma's friends' name are Ashley and George. George is large, and Ashley is larger. Emma has always been scared of the sun because of her sensitive skin.
Ooh, interesting. I think you're getting ready to set up the problem. I like how you added that extra sentence about her, because I think that's giving us an idea what might come ahead. I love it. That was awesome. Very nice. All right. Anybody want to share one of their first pages with me? Madison, will you read your establish the situation with your rectangle page?
Okay. Long, long ago in the rainforest, in a pond, there were 3 frogs. Their names were Maddie, Olivia, and Bob. Maddie was the largest, and she tries to find food while the other frogs chat.
Very nice. All right. I like how you got the rainforest in there and the pond idea. Very nice. Okay. And then maybe I'm hoping that maybe later in the story that rainforest idea might come up again. Like maybe in your problem, thinking about what the rainforest is. Okay, my friends, I think you're all working really hard. Thank you so much. I want to honor your time because I know that we have some specials to work on and some other, I know some of you have other people you meet with. So I want to make sure to honor your time. Those of you in my homeroom, don't forget you have a music assignment this week. So keep that in mind for this big chunk of time that's after EL. Don't forget to start working on your music assignment, okay? Because we forgot to talk about that this morning. All right, my friends, I know not everyone is finished, and that is okay. What I would like to do though is I would like to wrap up our lesson, and then if you are not done with page 27 and 28, I need you to go ahead and finish them. Just the 2 pages we just did. You don't have to go on, just the page with the characters and the box, okay? Just those 2 pages. You don't have to go any further than that, all right? But what I would like you to do is I'd like you to think about our, here we had, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this for just a second. Think about our checklist, because eventually you're gonna have to check off things to make sure you have them. So if you think you already, it's like I introduced the narrator and established the situation. If you did that, you'll be ready to say yes over here. If you added some good ways so that the reader could imagine the characters or the setting, you could jot some ideas down here, the ways you did that, and put yes. Just think about, before you wrap it all up today, did you do those things with the stars? Because those were the things we were focusing a little bit on today. All right? So just take a look at those and see, did you do that? Did you use some information about what you already know about frogs? Did you introduce the narrator and establish the situation? Did you help the reader understand by using describing words about what they might see, hear, smell, feel?
Yeah.
Did you help the reader imagine what you have in your head?
Yeah.
Did you use words and sentences in sentences that would follow the rules of writing?
Yeah.
Did you use your spelling, capitalization, and punctuation that you know so far? Okay. Those are the things. All right. If you are finished,
I please have Max Fox stay on
You bet.
Zoom? Thank
All right.
you.
So my friends who are not finished, go ahead and continue on. Finish page 27 and 28, and then tomorrow we'll move on with the rest of our story. So if you are one of those ones that had trouble writing your sentences today, because you didn't have your thoughts yet, why don't you, in your, while you're doing other things, or getting ready to sleep maybe tonight, think about that problem that's coming, because that's going to be something that comes next, right, is our problem. So think about how that problem is going to come out, so that tomorrow when you're writing your problem part sentences down, you'll already have some ideas in your head. Okay? All right, my friends, if anybody has any, Max, you're staying. Anybody else have any serious questions, they can stay on with me. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and, you guys can go ahead, and I'll see either OG or our all block with Mrs. Aubin at 12:45. All right. Okay, let me.
Bye.